Okay, so when you hear the name Cleopatra, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably the Hollywood version, right? The ultimate seductress. But what if I told you the real story is, well, it's way more interesting? We're talking about a formidable ruler, a brilliant scholar, and yeah, a ruthless strategist. Let's peel back the layers and get to the true story of the last queen of Egypt.
And really, it all boils down to this one question. Was she just a temptress, using her beauty to control powerful men? Or was she a brilliant survivor, playing an impossible hand in a high-stakes political game? The answer, as you'll see, isn't that simple, and it's for sure not what you've seen in the movies.
This quote from biography.com really hits the nail on the head. We get so hung up on our famous relationships, but the reality? Cleopatra was an incredibly intelligent leader who ruled in her own right. I mean, think about that. A woman calling the shots in the ancient world? That was almost unheard of.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to tear down that myth. Then we'll look at the absolute mess of a kingdom she was handed. We'll dive into her incredible mind, her, let's say, ruthless political moves, and then we'll get to the big finale, her showdown with Rome, and a final mystery about her death that people are still debating today.
Okay, so first up, the myth. And yeah, you got to picture Elizabeth Taylor in that 1963 epic. That's the image that stuck with all of us, right? The ultimate femme fatale. But here's the kicker. That whole story? It was basically Roman propaganda, a smear campaign designed to take down a powerful woman who dared to stand in their way. So what was really going on? Well, to get Cleopatra, you have to get the world she was thrown into. She inherited a kingdom that was just falling apart. Her family, the Ptolemies, they weren't even Egyptian. They were Macedonian Greeks, and after a few centuries, their grip on power was seriously slipping. You know, for almost 300 years, Egypt's relationship with Rome went from being partners to, well, basically being Rome's puppet. It got so bad that one of her ancestors, Ptolemy VIII, was literally giving away chunks of territory to Rome just to be left alone. Talk about desperation. And then came the moment that changed everything. Cleopatra's own father paid this mind-boggling bribe of 6,000 talents to Julius Caesar and Pompey. Now, to give you an idea of how much that is, that's enough money to pay an entire Roman legion for 15 years. 15! That one payment basically bankrupted the country and put Egypt completely under Rome's thumb. So that was the situation. That was the chessboard, when Cleopatra, who's still just a teenager, mind you, becomes queen. She's handed this kingdom that's broke, torn apart by conflict, and totally at the mercy of Rome. What a start, right? But, and this is a big but, Cleopatra was different. She had a secret weapon that set her apart from the rest of her family. And it wasn't her looks, it was her brain.
It's funny. If you read what ancient historians like Plutarch wrote, they barely mention her beauty. What they go on and on about is her charisma, her captivating voice, and her powerful intellect. He said her voice was like an instrument of many strings, and that she could just effortlessly switch between languages. That's where her real power was.
I mean, she was a legit scholar queen, fluent in at least 9 languages. And get this, she was the only one in her entire dynasty who even bothered to learn Egyptian, the language of the people she was ruling. She was an expert in economics, law, military strategy. This wasn't just royalty. This was a political mastermind in action.
And that brilliant mind came with a side of pure ruthlessness, which, let's be honest, you absolutely needed to survive back then. She was not afraid to get her hands dirty, to hold on to her power. Not at all.
Just how ruthless? Well, to secure her throne, she went to war with her own brother, had her sister executed, and very likely poisoned her other brother. This was a real-life Game of Thrones, and Cleopatra was playing to win, no matter the cost. Which, of course, brings us to Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Look, these famous love affairs, they weren't just about romance. Far from it. They were calculated, strategic alliances. Cleopatra was a master politician, and she used these relationships to keep her kingdom safe and even expand her influence. And this breakdown says it all. With Caesar, it was a totally transactional deal. He needed Egypt's money and grain, she needed his army to win a civil war. Simple. With Antony, it was the same playbook. He needed her resources for his wars, and she needed his protection. They were partners in power, not just passion. But at the end of the day, even a leader as sharp as Cleopatra couldn't stop the inevitable. There was this unstoppable force on the horizon, and its name was Rome.
You see, Rome was having its own internal meltdown, a massive civil war between Mark Antony and Caesar's heir, this cold, calculating guy named Octavian. And Cleopatra? She was caught right in the middle. By betting on Antony, she automatically became public enemy #1 for Octavian and, well, all of Rome.
And Octavian was smart. He launched this brilliant propaganda campaign, painting Cleopatra as this evil foreign queen who was corrupting a good Roman general. It worked. At the massive naval battle of Actium, their fleets were crushed. And that was pretty much the end for Egypt.
So here's the thing. Her downfall wasn't really a personal failure. You could argue she was one of the most brilliant rulers of her time who just happened to be standing in the path of a freight train. She wasn't defeated by one man. She was defeated by an entire empire at the peak of its power. So, her reign was over. Egypt was officially just another Roman province. But her story has one last twist. One final, fascinating mystery that makes you question everything you thought you knew.
We all know the legend, right? The asp, the snake, hidden in a basket of figs. It's this dramatic final act of defiance. But what if that's just another piece of the myth? A lot of historians and even toxicology experts are now saying, hang on a second, they think it's way more likely she was assassinated. One last cold-blooded move by Rome to tie up a loose end.
And that's the ultimate cliffhanger, isn't it? Here's this brilliant queen who outsmarted and outplayed everyone for 2 decades, only to be crushed by an unstoppable empire. But did she choose her own exit, one last act of defiance? Or was that choice made for her? It's that final question that makes the real Cleopatra just as captivating, if not more so than any legend.